Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Haunted Vermont podcast. My name is Paul Doski, and joining us is, I'm going to go as far as saying a legendary illustrator or graphic designer because, his artwork is phenomenal. And if you do not know his work, then what the hell are you doing? Go to the internet and type in this gentleman's name, because this gentleman we are speaking to is none other than Sam Shearon. And I don't even know how to even introduce him anymore, so I'm just going to shut up and let him talk. So welcome aboard, Sam.
Good evening. Thanks so much for the invite. Yeah, greetings and welcome, everybody.
It's a pleasure. I've been wanting to reach out to you ever since I heard David Weathery was making a book about my beloved Green Mountain State. And obviously, as you know, I do the Haunted Vermont thing. I've actually been collecting stories between what I know and from other people and authors, since 2012. So, but it's just been a fun little hobby. And then eventually I figured, why not branch out more and try to talk with more people about different things. And in this case, I think it's kind of works out because not only is David like an investigator and all this stuff, and he writes books about the different cryptids of each state, sort of. Well, that's what I think he's trying to get to. But anyway, the fact that he did one on Vermont is very interesting. And it's just one of those things where it's like, the artwork alone, if that just doesn't grab you, even on a bookshelf, then I guess Sam did not do a job. But in this case, I love Sam's work, and I did not know about Sam until I found David Weathery with his other monster books, and that's where I became a fan of your work, Sam. So,
thank you so much. Yeah, no, that's really nice to hear. Me and David go back a long way, more than 10 years now, I believe. And I think I've worked with him. It's more of a collaboration at this stage, where with his Monster State series, we're trying to go for all of the states and then some, and eventually probably going to branch into Canada and beyond. But I think so far we're up to book 14 just for the Monster States. But I've obviously illustrated other books in his library, if you want to call it that. At some point, he's going to have the Weatherly Library, because he does a whole series of books on ghosts. I'm sure you're familiar with hauntings and things from everywhere. And I think that's a collaboration with a couple of other people as well. But David's great. I've known him forever. Wonderful chap and a wealth of knowledge. And as you say, he's done the Vermont State now with the infamous Champ on the cover. So, no.
Yes, and we will be getting into that layout of the cover between the front and the back, too, because it's not just Champ that shows up. But real quick, Sam, so to kind of start this off, and you already have, answered a question, but maybe we can, go into it a little bit more. But anyway,
sure.
Let's start off with people that may not know your work. So who the hell are you? And how did you get into this, the strange world of what I'm going to call the horror universe? Now, real quick, Sam, when I was trying to figure out this question of usually, I usually just throw in the word horror, but with you, I almost first put cryptid universe, but then I was just like, no, I know Sam's artwork a little bit more than just cryptid, so I'm just going to put horror universe. So how did you get into it?
Well, as you could probably tell from my accent, my voice, I'm originally from the UK. I live in Los Angeles now, but I grew up in the northwest of England. And for the most part, childhood consisted of books on natural history and dinosaurs and that sort of thing. But as I got a little older, I started to discover things that shouldn't be, or things that never were, and all these legends and myths from across all of Europe, but mainly in England. There was talk of fairies and ghosts, lake monsters, and things like that. Big werewolf mythology stemming from England. Of course, you have our witches and witch trials and things like that. But yeah, the older I got, the more books I collected. I buried my head in it. When everyone else was sort of running outside and playing, I'd be inside with a book and a pencil. And then getting into the age of the internet, it really just, the floodgates opened, where now we can sort of contact other people like yourself who go on investigations and are really, and enthusiastic about this whole wide spectrum of the unexplained. And horror in general, movies and film, books, novels, graphic novels, comic books, the whole gamut of it. I just absolutely love it, and try to weave my work into those sort of corners of entertainment as much as I can, because I just live and breathe anything to do with creepy stuff. So it sounds very vague, but that's pretty much the same story as anybody really that's sort of into this stuff. Is it just became an obsession, and so it became a career. So I'm quite fortunate in that sense.
Well, I think it's been a while since I've shared this. I don't actually, now that I think about it, I don't know if I've ever shared it on this podcast. I know I shared it on my other one, but anyway, so Sam, I got into the realm of horror, I guess, by my father, and just because he was more into the horror than my mother was. But my first ever horror film that I kind of snuck downstairs to creep around a corner to make sure my parents couldn't see me was Bram Stoker Dracula. And it was during the werewolf scene where Mina was on the table.
I know one. See me now. Do not see me. Yeah.
Yeah, that one. And I kind of watched a little bit of that part, and I was just like, I think I should not be watching this. And then I somehow managed to sneak back upstairs.
And how old were you at the time, if you don't mind me asking?
I was probably 7 or 8.
Wow. My mum tried to sneak me into the cinema to see that. I think I was 13 at the time, and unfortunately they wouldn't let us in because they knew I wasn't 18 years old. In England, you have to be 18. So she tried, but couldn't get me into the cinema. They were too strict on it, which is a shame. But yeah, needless to say, I've seen it many times since.
That's interesting, considering, you're usually okay as long as you have a parental guardian.
Yeah. Not in England. The rules are the rules, which is a shame.
Well, I wish you got to see it, I guess, later on. So
what's your favorite horror film today?
Oh God, favorite horror film today,
or your top 3, if you have to go more than one.
I'm gonna have to go more than one for a couple reasons. So let's start off with the black and white silent film Nosferatu.
Okay.
Just because with the amount of stuff that happened or was involved with that film to begin with, because of Bram Stoker, we are thankful to even be able to watch it today. And I still find it to be one of the greatest silent movies of that time, just because of how well shot and creepy Nosferatu is and what it's supposed to represent as a whole, I guess. Just because, back in the day, we take a look at like tuberculosis, and those people that had that at the beginning, we would kind of go into the whole those are vampires,
Oh yeah, yeah. No, it's that's a great choice as well. I mean, that film, incidentally, was released in 1922, but on my birthday. So I share the birthday with the release of Nosferatu.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's
And
pretty good.
and last year, no God, yeah, last year I'm pretty sure it was either last year or 2021. It celebrated its 100th anniversary. So
Oh yeah, that was last year. Yeah, 100
yeah,
years. Yeah,
crazy.
2022. Yeah, it's amazing. And as you say, we're lucky to have it because there was a court order, wasn't there, from the widow of Bram Stoker because he had died, but she took the film director F.W. Murnau to court and won to say that it's too similar to her late husband Bram Stoker's book, and that they ordered all of the film copies to be destroyed. And somehow, I think maybe there was some in a box under a floorboard somewhere. Somebody saved a copy, thank God. We have that now. Incredible, really. And it is unfortunately a copy. It's a rip off. It's plagiarism. It's a shame that that happens every day, even to me. But for what it is, as you say, as an art piece, the way it was shot in the very, very early days of cinema, stylistically, things were shot in negative and reversed to make it look like night and make it look like day. And just so clever, everything. He actually, the actor Max Schreck, put actual fish lenses in his eyes from a dead fish to look, otherworldly, and it worked, didn't it? I mean, incredible, way ahead of its time. So, yeah.
So yes,
Thank goodness we have that.
And what's even more crazy is when I'm probably exaggerating this when I say this, but it was somewhere around 8-10 years ago. They ended up finding more footage, and they ended up having to re-release the film again because of the extra footage that they found. So, wow. I mean, whatever.
I mean, why not? Yeah. I'm looking forward to the remake in a sense that...
Oh, you're talking Robert Eggers.
Yeah, the Eggers remake. The guy who did The Witch and The Lighthouse. He's somehow been given the rights to do this. I'm not entirely sure about the cast decisions, but I believe they're using Willem Dafoe again because he already played it in another movie that was, if you've heard of, what was it called? Something, Tale of a Shadow of the Vampire, I think it was.
Shadow of the Vampire.
Yeah, and it had Eddie Izzard was in there, and John Malkovich played the director Max Schreck, and Willem Dafoe played Nosferatu, the Count Orlok. Yes. But that film they tried to sort of portray it as though he really was a vampire, the actor, which was a nice take. But with this remake, with Edgar's remake, they're using Willem Dafoe again as the same Nosferatu character. So that's going to be interesting because it would almost link those together, which is quite nice in a way, consistently. Though I never thought he was quite physically accurate enough. I'm a stickler, being a visual person myself. I like things to be accurate as much as possible.
Okay, so that is why I will have to throw in The Witch, because that comes so close to what those type of people were dealing with back in the day. And I just find that, so I remember watching it in the movie theaters with a friend of mine. They didn't like it. I went home and I was just like, oh my God, this is probably a masterpiece, and I remember seeing all the negative comments for it. And I remember going on social media and I was just like, for all you guys giving this film a hard time, this is what you need to do. You need to stop thinking about going into a film to get scared. Maybe you should just open up your mind and realize that this film is supposed to represent almost like an American history lesson in a way.
Oh yeah, and it was fantastic, wasn't it? The way they put it together, as you said, everything. Very, very accurate, which made it disturbing because it was a horrible time. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, because the way even me and my girlfriend even talk about it because she never saw it at the time. So I was like, "What?" I'm like, "You got to sit down and we're watching this because you need to see this." And so me and her agreed about a few things where we speculate with the fact of that, you know, even though the witch is supposed to be everything or everywhere, we kind of made it look like they almost made it look like not only is it everywhere, but it's contaminating the family's mind so much that now it's becoming like that disease where you cannot even trust each other, and which is perfect because back in the day with the witch trials and this and that, like it became exactly that, right? Like nobody could be trusted.
Yeah. Horrible time. You know, very little education, lots of superstition, and mix all those together with fear and just paranoia. My goodness, what an awful way to, you know, if you're accused, that's it, your life's over.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you're somehow were able to, I'm just going to say escape, but that was unlikely.
Yeah, run away.
Yeah.
Because even if they bless you and like cleanse you and everything, they still put you to death. They set you free, kind of thing. Just awful, awful.
And
I don't think me and you would be sat here if we were.
Oh no! Oh God, no!
We'd be long gone.
Oh yeah. Oh, what's that? You devil! It's like, yeah, I'm done. Knowing my luck, I would be like, what's his name? Giles. That would say more weight. I think I would probably be that same guy.
Right, there you go.
So, oh man. So my last film, I guess I would have to pick, would be the 2009 version of Trick or Treat from Michael Daughtry.
I don't think I saw it. I have a fly in front of me. Sorry.
Oh, I have a fly too, so don't worry. And you know, I'm gonna go by for the record here. I would even throw in Michael's Krampus too for around the holiday season for a Krampus time.
That was a good film. There was it was not quite Krampus in terms of the real sort of the legends and stuff. It was very commercially Krampus. Yeah, it was definitely twisted, and it was a great fun film. It felt like National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation with a bit of Gremlins thrown in. It was enjoyable. I thought it was a great film. But I've yet to see a really good proper Krampus movie. Maybe I'll make one.
There you go. Yeah. Watch the space. There you go. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I've seen so many different Krampus movies that it's like I have to go with his. Like, I think it's just because I just like the story that they were trying to do, like that old ancient legend where back in the day this is what happened, and then as the grandmother got older, it followed her to the new family and this and that. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't want that.
No,
I would not want that either.
One likes the family curse. No, that's a great choice.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I would, like I said, I would probably just end it with probably Trick or Treat for that, like Trick or Treat Krampus, I would say. Now if like, so I have some guilty pleasures. So like for Thanksgiving, I will watch Thanksgiving.
Okay.
Like stupidest film you can ever imagine.
I've heard of it. Believe there's a remake of that coming. Is it Eli Roth's doing it? I'm not sure. Maybe I heard that wrong, but it rings a bell. I've yet to see the old one though, the original, shall we say?
The one with the puppet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so what would be your top 3 favorite films, would you say, Sam?
You know, that's just an impossible question to answer. Um, I mean, like yourself, there's just too many to choose from. You can't go wrong with John Carpenter's The Thing. His take on the Thing concept. That was an incredible movie, special effects wise, story wise, acting, the music, everything was perfect. And apparently, when it came out, it flopped. It wasn't a hit at all at the time when it was released. And now it's it's a cult classic. They've released books on it, and there's tribute gallery artworks for it and stuff like that.
The board game.
Yeah, I mean, video games, everything. So The Thing is definitely up there. I'll always go back and watch that and enjoy it every time. I can never get bored with that.
What did you think of the
prequel?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I liked it. I wish they would have used puppetry and, as we were talking about puppets, practical effects, as John Carpenter's crew did. It seemed to take away a lot of the sort of the realism to it. Let's just be real about it. It just doesn't look real when it's computer generated. It really stands out. It was good. It was very well done. But when you have too much detail happening, ironically, it doesn't look real. I thought the story and the concept were great, though. I liked the idea that it was something that was, not to ruin it for anyone who hasn't seen it, but it was something that was obviously an alien that was collecting DNA from all over the galaxy, and that's why it could transform into anything. And I thought it was brilliant how they brought all that out, and the entire film takes place before The Thing. So, really good film, really good remake, prequel, pre-make. Bram Stoker's Dracula is a fun favorite. I wouldn't put it up there as the top. I did like The Ritual. I don't know if you've seen that.
Actually, the one from Netflix, right?
Yeah, it's about the British hikers in Sweden, and then the sort of the black goat, H.P. Lovecraft demon type creatures in the woods. And I'm thinking now, The Ruins. Have you seen The Ruins? About the plants.
Oh yes.
Yeah, that was fantastic. That was a really good concept. There's once in a while you'll get a really unique idea, and that was one of them. Another one would be Tremors. That was a really unique idea. Something that there's been other films that are similar, but something that could exist, and you could sort of say that Tremors, in a sense, is a cryptid movie, and The Ruins is a cryptid movie. I mean, you've heard of the Mongolian death worm. It's sort of, a lot of people say that Tremors is sort of a really gross exaggeration of that scenario. But I love the Tremors films, all of them. Some of them are really silly, and that's what makes them great. Speaking of silly, the Evil Dead series, that whole franchise, absolutely brilliant. Every one of them. There's not a bad film in that entire catalog. Sam Raimi is a genius. The new directors who did the recent films, equally good. Really enjoyed the recent one,
Evil Dead
Rise. Yeah, I saw that on the big screen and really enjoyed it. I thought it was great. They got all the sort of gimmicks in there. It was brilliant. There's no end of films. There's no end of horror films that you can always go back to. Pumpkinhead with Lance Henriksen is another one. The Hellraiser franchise, up to number 10, with Doug Bradley. All the way up to number 10, and then we can just forget the rest. I thought the new one, the recent take, it's not even a remake; it's a completely new story.
You're talking the one with the female. Not to cut you off.
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. I thought that was really well done. It was a nice, unique story. And I don't know how familiar you are with the Hellraiser franchise after the third one. It sort of becomes individual stories. It's different people who find the box. So every movie's different. But it always had Doug Bradley in it. And I thought, that was, the hook.
That was
excuse the pun, yeah. But I thought the remake was, or the new take rather, because again, it's not the same story at all. It's a completely new set of characters, different setting, different time, different Cenobites. And it was nice to see the sort of the expansion of Clive's world really kind of pushed to its limits in different areas that had never been done before. So I thought it was nice. I hope they do more. They don't have to keep the same people. They can just change it again, make it different again. Make one where it's just pets. That would be good.
Perfect. Yeah, no, like I'll even go as far as saying I'll drop the Alien franchise in. I'll just say let's go to 3 at least. Red Direction is Red Direction.
It's a film.
Film. Prometheus. There's beautifully shot. Way too much goddamn talking.
It was a little slow, yeah. When you've had the glory of Aliens, where it's a full-on action movie, anything after that kind of became dull. It was so good, that second film, because the first film is a horror film, and the second film is an action movie. So where do you go after horror, action? They didn't. I think they sort of hinted at going towards romance, but it didn't quite work. And it's you can't do comedy. It's Alien. I mean, you had that with Alien versus Predator. There were certain aspects of comedy in there because it seems the later Predator movies have become a joke.
Yeah,
Prey was good.
Prey was phenomenal.
It was very, very good. The cast were incredible. All of them just absolutely sold the movie. It was really well done. The Predator, with Shane Black directing, who was starring in the first film.
And directed the first film.
Yep. Yeah, awful. Yeah. Awful. Yeah. Absolutely awful.
I think I watched that twice, and I only watched it again because I thought we were going to do a podcast on it, and we never did.
Okay. Yeah. Well, you have the excuse there. But I don't think I'll ever get those 2 hours back. It was pretty bad.
I've been asked if I would recommend The Predator, and we said if you can rent it for free, or if it's on Tubi or something, then watch it.
Yeah. Style-wise, if you like looking at monsters, it's something you could maybe have on in the background, but the story and everything, and that ridiculous Iron Man type suit at the end, nonsense.
Yeah, I'm not even going to go into it.
Yeah, terrible. Anyway.
So anyway, Sam, to get back onto why we're actually talking to you, but I mean, maybe some people enjoyed that. Or people are probably like, all right, let's get on to what we really came to listen to. So, So anyway, Sam, you were mentioning that you were younger. You were one of those kids that wanted to get the books, write stuff down, do this and that. You didn't want to go outside and play, basically. You wanted to learn about stuff that are not even supposed to be existing, that people are claiming to be seeing and this and that. So as you got older, what tributed to you to want to, draw, do graphic design and illustration to like what you do today? So I guess what kind of sparked the fire that made you kind of want to bring the creature that you have wrote down about, basically to life?
I think really it all stems from my enjoyment of other people's artwork, and also my sort of observation of other people's bad artwork. in a sense that I'll be reading a book. For example, as a kid, I would maybe looking at a book on Loch Ness, and the illustrations were, and we're not even talking about witness illustrations. We're talking about maybe the cover of the book, were just bad. And I thought something of such a caliber as this legend deserves better artwork. And it also sort of stemmed from my upbringing of spending a lot of time when I did go out was in museums and natural history museums. So I'd be sat underneath a dinosaur skeleton, and I'd be learning about it. I books full of it. So I knew my anatomy and I knew my natural history, and so I also sort of wanted to share my knowledge and my ability to draw. According to my mum, I've been drawing monsters since I could hold a pencil. So I was pretty good as a kid. And so growing up, I wanted to sort of share that enjoyment of what something should look like in the best way possible. And it really did sort of stem from other people's works. I'd be looking at Saturday morning movies, Jason and the Argonauts, Clash of the Titans, those kind of old monster movies with Ray Harryhausen, the stop motion, almost claymation monsters. Again, I would look at those, and after a while, as I got older, they didn't look as good anymore. They're nostalgic to me now, and I have them all on DVD, and I'll go back and I'll watch, Valley of the Gwangi or Lost World, all of those classics. And Gorgo is another one. Even all the old Godzilla movies, after a while, when you see it's a guy in a suit, it kind of, you want more, you want something more realistic. And I think we're living in an age now where when they're remaking films like Godzilla, they're trying to make it look as realistic as possible. And I like that, particularly from an enjoyment standpoint of, if it's a goofy looking thing, it's laughable and it can't be taken seriously. With the movie, going back to Alien, it was, even though this thing doesn't exist, it was so well executed and designed that once they took the illustrations from H.R. Geiger and turned them into this three-dimensional creature that, a man was in was still a guy in a suit, but it was something no one had ever seen before. That really is the sort of thing that I look for in films and in books and illustrations and comic books and graphic novels that really inspires me. And that's really kind of where it all began. Is I would just sort of naturally go in that direction. I want to do that, so I'm going to do that. Lots of influences of other artists, that really, as a teenager and in my 20s, I would look at and think, God, I'd love to be able to do that and be able to illustrate my own ideas and show people what's in my head, but at this level and maybe beyond. So that's really where it all came from, is wanting to share the enjoyment of weird stuff.
That's fair enough. I mean, in
a nutshell.
Yeah, in a nutshell. Godzilla, oh man, like I can't even think of it off the top of my head which one it would be, unfortunately. It would be the one where the three-headed dragon was in it, and then the twist too was the bad guys, the soldiers that were involved in it, they were
right,
like beetles or something. Like they weren't really human or something. Like they were beetles.
Oh, I vaguely remember this. And there was an elevator scene at the very end, and they blow up the building, and these people that were aliens turned into cockroaches, kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah. That was a classic. I believe that there's one scene where the heroes, I think there's 3 or 4, they were, Asian, Japanese people who had illustrated themselves with marker pens, like with guns or something, on a big piece of paper or cardboard, and they were really well illustrated, and they put it in an elevator to fool the people, and they put explosives behind it. And so they sent the elevator up the skyscraper, and when it opened, these bad guys, these cockroach alien people, but just looked like people until they died, were fooled by this illustration, and they opened fire on this opening of the elevator. Yeah, that was ridiculous. Those were great movies, though, because for the most part, it was nothing to do with the monsters, you know?
Nope.
Which is strange. People complain about the new Godzilla where it's too many people, but they forget that the original Godzilla movies was also quite a lot about people, you know?
Yeah, the main focus was never Godzilla.
Yeah, he was always just happening in the background, yeah.
Yeah, basically. He was just always there in the background just for the purpose of just filling in for the background, I guess.
Coming and going. Yeah, different eras of Godzilla. He'd either be a good guy or he'd be a bad guy.
Yeah.
And it all depended on how hungry he was. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely how
great films, though. Yeah. I used to have an aunt that would videotape them late at night. They'd show them in England at 2 a.m. or something, and when I was a kid, she would send me these VHS tapes, and they'd be full of Godzilla movies. So that's great.
So I think we touched on this question anyway, but maybe if there's anything more you can add to it, Sam, feel free. If not, I will just take this question out. But anyway, once again, we were talking about how you have known David for like 10 years or so. You guys got together to bring it to life. So is there anything more you can talk to us about of like, helping to bring his books to life with the local legends of the different states, or what you're trying to do?
Well, originally we had, I don't think he had planned on the entire scope of it all. It was sort of a haphazard idea of let's just see how this is going to go. Maybe we can do this, maybe we can't. We don't know. And to write a book and cover as much as you can on any state, I can only imagine, because of course David's the author, I'm just the cover artist, but from his point of view, he's no spring chicken. I mean, he's not elderly, but he's said to me, there's only so many years left for us to do this before we're both in our 80s or whatever, him before me, of course. And so it's a race against time, which is one of my biggest enemies. Is time. Is never enough hours in the day. Sometimes people send me ideas and say, why don't you illustrate this? Or why don't, it'd be cool if you illustrated this. And unfortunately, I can't take on any other ideas because I have so many things. If I lived 100 years, I still wouldn't execute every idea I want to do. And I think with David, it's the same situation where he has so many things he'd love to write about. He has to be really conservative with what he puts in each book. Otherwise, as with anybody, you could write for 10 years about the state of Vermont. You could just keep finding stuff. And it's, everybody has a ghost story. Every pub is haunted. Every church has a tale. And so you could just go on and on and on and on. So at some point you've got to stop and say, okay, that book's done. And we're trying to get, between 2 and 4 books done a year. And so it's a lot for him to do. Aside from the documentaries and interviews and things that he does, he will also appear at various conventions and lecture and that kind of thing. And with me, again, there's only so many hours in the day where I can really settle down and decide, okay, well, what am I going to do today? Because I have my own projects. I have David's work, and I have, other authors that I'm also illustrating book covers for. So it's a case of when I do a piece, I have to sort of, at some point, close the door and say, okay, that's done. Because I could tweak something. Like anyone who illustrates will relate to this. And musicians and, writers, there comes a time when you have to put it to bed and say, okay, that's finished now. Otherwise, you could just go on forever. Like I'm doing now, rambling.
I wouldn't call it rambling, but you bring up some interesting points, like with time and if only we could like just stop time just to get all of the work done that we need to do.
Yeah, I say that so often. It's funny you mention that. I always say, if I could have a time machine, I'd love one that has a pause button so I could just get my stuff done.
Yeah, and it would be the greatest thing ever, I would feel like, because I mean, especially when everybody has so much on their shoulders that they want to lift off, and it can, whoever invented life need to just go back and tweak it just a little bit.
Just a bit.
Yeah. So to go back onto the topic of you, as you were talking about, your book covered when enough is enough and all that stuff. I think it would actually be a good way to segue back into it, of basically saying, so as you're talking about your books with David and your book covers, so back on June 27th, 2022, you and David released the book that we're going to be talking about, and stuff, is Monsters of the Green Mountain State, Cryptids and Legends of Vermont, and David had a foreword of our local author, Joseph A. Citro. And like we were kind of mentioning a little bit, you have Champ on the very beginning, and then on the back with the same layout, it's like basically one big, I don't want to use panorama, but in a way it almost feels like that. But on the back, you got the infamous Pigman from Northfield, and then ironically, you throw in Bigfoot, which I think that's a given anyway. But I guess talk to us a little bit about the book cover. So I guess in a way, I want to throw two questions at you, Sam, just because it feels like it's perfect. So describe the way of how, I guess, you and David maybe talked about the book cover, or how that book cover came to be, especially with the fact that the image that we see of Champ, which looks so good, and the fact that anybody that looks at this would basically say, you know what, this is Sandra Manchi's photograph.
That's a great point you bring up. It's funny because every book that we've done so far, and you're right, it is, when you open the front cover and the back cover and you sort of spread it out, it's one panoramic image. I've tried to do that on every book so that the front and the back is one whole image that wraps around the cover itself of the book. And David's always sort of said that he'd quite like to have a Bigfoot or a Sasquatch of some kind on the back of every single one of them, because I'm sure you know, Bigfoot has been reported in every state, even Hawaii. People used to say bar Hawaii, but there are apparently stories of Littlefoot and things like that over there. So David's always wanted to put a Bigfoot on the back of every single state, somewhere in the background. It's almost like a little Easter egg. And in terms of what creatures go on in each state, it really comes down to David's sort of choice. But we'll throw it back and forth every now and then. He'll say, maybe I'll want to depict this creature, and then he'll change his mind and he'll say, well, perhaps not, because it's not as well known, or maybe he'll want to do something that isn't as well known because everybody else's book has that on the cover. The Pigman was interesting because some people think that that's a Sasquatch that wears a pigskin mask. Other people say that it's a Sasquatch wearing a pig's head. Other people say it's some kind of pig monster. So there's a real blurring of the lines there as to what it is. So that's always a fun one when David says, oh, why don't we include this one as well for the back? So that's always a good one. In terms of the Sandra Manchi photograph, this book is probably different from all of the other books in the whole series because it is the only one that kind of pays homage to an exact photograph that everyone will be familiar with if they know the Champ monster and the legend behind it. And so Sandra Manchi's passed away now, unfortunately. She never got to see this, but my rendition of it is directly based on her photograph. In terms of, I tried to find as many versions of it as I could online, and if you go and Google search it, you'll find maybe about, I'd say, 5 or 6 different sizes and color variations and sharpness of the image. And there's nothing that's really clear. There's no real good, sharp image. It's actually very blurry. And it's really hard to make out what it is when you zoom in. From a distance, it looks great. And you think, oh, wow, look at that. That's Champ, you know? But when you zoom in and you're trying to look at this creature, you can't really see it. So what I wanted to do was create this image and add the detail that we can't see, using my knowledge of natural history, using my own artistic license to sort of add in the details that aren't even there in the photograph to kind of really enhance it and bring it to the forefront of what people want to see. If you could zoom in and sharpen it up, this is what it would look like. At least that's my artistic impression of it. So I'm really glad you asked that, because it's a great question. Lots of people have sort of just assumed that it's the photograph, and it's not.
Oh, it's definitely not, and you could just tell right away. So, I mean, I reached for I could. So,
yeah.
I mean, I don't want to say I could, but I mean, I bet there was other people. But I mean, you know, it kind of goes back with anybody, right? Like sometimes, well, okay. Let me reword what I want to say here. Most people have the eye to know what they're looking for or looking at.
Yep.
And then there's other where you can show them something. So perfect example. I was going to wait to say this, like when we got into the next segment of more of the paranormal cryptid world, but this kind of works perfectly here. So because of Champ and everything that's going on around Lake Champlain with, you know, like Katy Elizabeth, who I've talked with about her Champ search and this and that, and people going out there with sonar images, and, you know, with this new piece of evidence that, well, I call it evidence, but, you know, that was captured on July 23rd of this year, which was Sunday, by a man named Scott, oh God, I hope I don't butcher his last name, Thurber. He was on Lake Champlain with his family, fishing around what he called a ball of bait, apparently. And when he looked at his Garmin sonar device, he quickly had to screenshot what he was seeing. And what I just find really interesting is, first off, it's a sonar image. So sometimes, depending on the image, and I'm saying it for my sake, because, like, I don't know if Sam knows how to read a sonar better than anybody, or even better than me, let's just say, for the sake of the argument here, is sure. I do not know how to read a sonar. But with the screenshot that is shown here from Scott's capture, I mean, to me, that is exactly the shape and form of exactly how Nessie, Loch Ness, Champ would look like, I would feel like, on a screen. And, but at the same time, since I'm not there, it's you know, it's like I want to believe, but at the same time, it's like you know, like, it's so hard.
I hear what you're saying. It is uncanny valley kind of image where it's the perfect shape of the classic aquatic reptile from prehistoric times. You know, it's the plesiosaur image, isn't it? It looks like a long neck marine reptile, but is that what we're really looking at? Is it a school of fish? Is it some anomalous cloud of something in the water, dirt, a net, vegetation? We'll never know. It's very promising, and thank you for sharing the image with me earlier. it's a really fascinating, almost too good shape. I mean, it just looks like a monster.
Yes.
And who knows? Who knows? we're
Well,
not gonna find out unless it washes up.
well, I did find Scott's original post with this image, so I'm kind of glad I was able to find that. And um, basically, he was talking in his post that not only was he around something called a ball of bait, because there was a lot of fish around him. There was even like birds and other things that were also feeding on the fish before this thing showed up.
Right.
So what he also says is, if you look at the screenshot, you can actually see the wake trout at the bottom of the screen as this champy image cruises above it. So he's basically trying to say that the fish is below this, as Sam would call the monster form of what would be. So I guess technically the fish is below this image of what appears to be the shape and form of Champ.
That's interesting. So it's almost as though it's hunting them or feeding them or chasing the fish or following the fish.
Exactly.
That's what it appears to be. Wow.
Yeah. So that makes it, I think, that much more fascinating, if I may say.
I mean, if that's what we're looking at? 1 in a million capture.
Exactly.
I mean, what a piece of gold.
The only argument I have for that, though, is with the amount of the fact of technology has evolved over the years. And Sam, I'm pretty sure you're gonna know where I'm want to go with this too, and feel free to shine in too. Is you would think so? Let's go back in time for a minute, where Miss Manshee took the original photo, which was July 5th, 1977.
Sure.
Now, she originally took 2 pictures. The first one came out blurry, and then the second photo is the photo that we all know today, right? So now let's go back to a little bit of the present day, where we literally have, camera, video, like you name it, on our phone even. You're telling me from July 5th to 1977 now, with all the technology upgrades, improvements, and stuff, there's only this type of evidence from Lake Champlain where this thing has come out of the water, where we I'm just going to say, see the long neck, the head, and then a little bit of the bowl of its back. And then that's it. Like, this is literally the only evidence. But then again, look at how much proof we really have of, Scotland's Loch Ness Monster.
Yeah.
So it's just really interesting, though, that you would think, like, with the amount of technology that it is today for how much it's upgraded, wouldn't you think it would be that much more easier now to find this thing coming out of the water more, I guess? But then that goes back into, well, what do we not really know about this creature? So how long can it stay underwater before it needs to come back up? Especially, as you know, Sam, with Vermont, we have our winters where Lake Champlain has frozen completely over.
Interesting. Yeah. It's a funny one, and as you say, with technology, I mean, we could go in all directions with that argument. Why don't we have better UFO footage, better Bigfoot footage, better ghost footage, ghost audio, ghost any evidence? We've got children screaming outside. They're not mine. It makes you wonder, 50 years later, half a century later, we have come a long way in the last 10 or 20 years with technology and equipment and that kind of thing. But really, people aren't using those things to go out in the field. I mean, it's a sort of a case of, if you were a millionaire, you would have access to all of this and more. You'd have access to any piece of equipment you could ever want. And if you take someone like Elon Musk, for example, he could do this. He could go through Loch Ness with submarines and sonar and radar and the highest tech available, but it's not of his interest. He wants to build space rockets and go to Mars, and he's doing that. Now, if we ever have a millionaire that is actually, invested in finding a lake monster like Loch Ness or Lake Champlain, then maybe we'll get that. Maybe we'll find Jeff Bezos who'll be interested in Bigfoot, that will go out into the woods with maybe 1,000 ex-commandos and circle the place with thermal imagery and close in on something and finally get proof. But unfortunately, we just don't have those people out in the field. For the most part, we don't have millionaires running around looking for Bigfoot. It isn't something that billionaires tend to be interested in, unless they can make money, and quite often they'll just fall down the route of faking it to make more money. We've all seen the hoaxes, and it's the same with Champ. It's such a vast area, the Redwoods. It's such a vast lake. Loch Ness as well is bigger than people think it is. It's not just a lake in a town. It's an inland sea almost. It's 20 odd miles long. It's 1,000 feet deep at its deepest point. It's one of those that has its own weather system in a sense, because it's surrounded by mountains. This thing is so vast, you could fit the world's population 3 times over inside the lake, the Loch Ness. So the other thing is, in the 1980s, you have a chap, you've probably heard of Adrian Shine, who has the big white beard, the old chap who lives up in Scotland, who's a skeptic of Loch Ness, but he was part of Operation Deep Scan in the 1980s, where they had a fleet of boats on the loch, and they literally went across from one end to the other and scanned it. And it was very famous. Lots of money was thrown into it. All these boats were lined up. Each had their own equipment to scan down and deep into the loch. And they got a hit, very similar to the one we've just seen here from Champlain. But it was a large, dark shape. The boats had caught it at Loch Ness. The only problem was they couldn't turn around quick enough to go back and find it again. But this thing has gone. Has it swum off? Has it gone deeper? Has it turned around? You just can't chase it. You cannot chase it fast enough. And I can imagine it's the same with Lake Champlain. Is once you get that on radar, you're not likely going to see that again. You can't suddenly just start chasing it, because if it turns around on the spot underwater and goes the opposite direction, by the time you've turned around, it's long gone. So it's very tricky, regardless of the amount of equipment we have, regardless of the level of technology. It's really, needle in a haystack of chances that we're ever even going to see it again.
Good point. Yes.
Sad but true.
It really is, man. So to wrap up this section here about your book cover that you have, like I said, have beautifully have done for the Green Mountain State, I will say, is so now with the new software that has come into our world and everything, where it basically taking everybody's jobs. And I'm not trying to say it as like in South Park, they took our job, but yeah, I mean, that's all I can think about when I hear this, like where everybody's basically saying because of the software taking their jobs. And quite frankly, it's quite sad of how much it is starting to affect everybody. And it's not just people like you, Sam. It's like people who do audiobooks and just everything, right? Like anybody that's trying to be a creator in some way, shape, or form, it's hitting them real bad. And for people now listening, of what I'm trying to ramble on about is artificial intelligence, or AI for short. Now, I'm pretty sure anybody had dreaded for this to finally, take place to happen, but it never seemed to be the case where the cons and pros come into play, this and that. They just say,
Mhm.
you know what, let's just release it, and we just don't give a shit, which I may say, because it kind of is true to that aspect because, well, because of what our AI can already do, it makes it much more scary compared to what it should not be doing, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But so Sam, for you being like this creator, and because like I'm looking, like I physically have the copy of the book, thanks to David, who was nice enough to sign a copy for me and send it to me. And I just want to say, like, if I did not know you, Sam, before this, right? Like, let's just say I just met David just through this book, right? First thing I'm going to think of now, because of the AI universe, is this is an AI image, right?
Hmm.
Now, um, in that aspect, Sam, how dangerous for somebody like you is AI affecting you? Because, like I just said, since even though I know you, I know you do the type of work, I've
Hmm.
seen your other artwork, and then now I can almost be like, well, is this real or just fake?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's very disheartening. I will say, on behalf of all creators out there, whether you're a writer or a singer or musician of some kind, or a visual artist in any way, we're not going to go away, and we shouldn't suddenly stop what we're doing. Um, a friend of mine who's a fellow artist said that we should move with the times and it's inevitable and we should adopt these technologies and use them and just think of them as another tool in our arsenal that we can use ourselves and develop our work even further and faster. I tend to disagree with that on a few levels. But it's funny, as you say, I've started to look at my own work, my previous work in my gallery in my store where I sell prints and things. And I'm looking at it, and I said to my girlfriend the other day, my artwork looks like it could have been done by AI, and that's really jarring for me in my mind because I know it's taken me, 3 days, a week, 2 weeks, sometimes on certain pieces, depending on the details and things like that. And it's my own eye, it's my own perception of how I want it to be portrayed, and my skills and my knowledge of light and my knowledge of line work and of weight, and to really understand what's happening in a visual sense. With AI, all of those skills are done by a machine. And it's not just that, they are taking other people's work, almost like a magpie taking all the shiny pieces that it wants and putting it together to save people time. And it's really morally wrong because, you're literally stealing from not just people's jobs and livelihood, but their actual work that they've done. When anyone uses AI to promote their albums, their book covers, their podcasts, their Patreons, anything like that, and they are sort of trying to make money by using AI, it's morally awful and in many ways shameful because you've stolen from someone else and you're asking for money from someone else by using someone's stolen work, and it's really really sickening in a way. So why would you think that's okay? You know, what part of that is okay? It's not. That's horrible. That's absolutely awful. I'm hearing now on YouTube there are songs that are covers, but they've used AI to make it sound as though it's sung by somebody else. So, for example, you could have James Hetfield from Metallica singing a song by Dream Theater, and it sounds real. It sounds like James Hetfield's doing it. And that's interesting. And this is where I get to my second point. It's interesting because now we're at the very, very beginning of this. Imagine this in 20 years. Good God, this is going to be frightening, insane. And where I'm hoping it's going to go is it's going to be fine-tuned, and it's going to be used for specific things that are needed, not just to be played around with. And I think in terms of publishing and covers and things like that, we're starting to see bits of AI that we can recognize where it just doesn't look good. It doesn't have a soul. There's no little nuances or little details that you can tell is done by a person. And it's the same with audio. Although, as I say, in 20 years, they're going to iron out those little creases and you won't be able to tell. It's very hard already when you see the face swap and it looks like Tom Cruise is talking, but it's not him, it's an actor, and they've just put his skin over his face digitally. The new Indiana Jones movie, they used a lot of technology they developed to make him look younger. They could have done better. Apparently it took them 3 years, but for some reason, this technology is doubling, tripling every year. And so now we're in a position where real artists like myself are having to sort of go backwards in a sense. I do a lot of digital artwork. I use Photoshop, but I'm the one who's pushing the pixels around, and I'm choosing every mark that my digital paintbrush is doing. I'm not pressing a button. And the old joke was, back in the day, I sound old now, but back in the day, when Photoshop first came around, and people started playing around with it to create artwork, there was a lot of a stigma and a hatred for it from artists, as there is today for AI. And back in the beginnings of Photoshop, people would say, well, you're just pressing a button. That's not art. You're not creating any artwork, and it wasn't true, because when you finally start playing with Photoshop, which I did, I was curious to sort of see what it was doing. You could then very quickly realize that it is a tool that you will paint with, and okay, you're not mixing your paint on a brush and physically doing it. It's digitally doing it, which is quicker. And some people would argue that AI is the same. It's another leap. It's another step forward in saving time. And that might be the case, and it is the case in many ways. But what it's doing is it's also removing the soul and the heart and the graft of someone else who's actually done the work. Now we really are pressing a button, and it's the machine that's doing the work. And it's not just doing the work. It's not working at all. It's stealing from other people's work who are actually creating in the first place. So as you see, it's a big vicious circle of, where do you really draw the line? Well, you draw the line by sort of telling people, if you're using AI, you have to really appreciate that you're not an artist, and you can't go around selling 100 different versions of some image that you didn't create. A machine created it. And I would put my foot down on that, I think there'll come a time when it'll be very useful for film and television, to enhance certain things and save time and do versions of things for TV shows. That's where it's good. I think AI will be brilliant in the medical industry, where it'll be able to solve diseases and cure people at an exponential rate. There was a time when I believe Xbox Live were asking people to log in and use their I'm not even sure how it worked, but they would ask people to have the computing power logged online to solve medical problems. There was some kind of code in the background that was trying to figure something out, and they would ask people around the globe when they would log into the Xbox to just sign up to this thing so that it can use their computing power to think quicker and have this computer as a sort of a massive brain to solve some kind of puzzle, which was a really nice idea. And I think if we have that now with AI, we're looking at advancements in medicine for sure. Now that will probably, unfortunately, end up in advancements in medical companies and big pharma making more money out of people and making them sick because they know how to cure them, and how it goes. But I think there's good and bad aspects for AI. I just don't think the art world and music world and the writing world should be touched by it, especially by people who are not artists,
There's no
Just,
emotion.
it's just, yeah, it's soulless. It's not cool.
Definitely not cool. But I mean, if AI could help me find a better solution for like my thyroid problem that I've had since I was 2 years old, then amazing.
There you go. There you go. Yeah, I welcome it all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Who knows what they'll do?
Who knows, man? I just hope that they just do AI right, because I will just say this, and I'm not trying to make it in the pun intended from this, but it's going to go that way. But, I mean, we all seen what happened with Terminator.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You know, it's funny, people joke about it. And as you say that, you know, pun intended, but I had a chat the other day with a friend of mine who was saying that a machine can only do what you tell it to do. And unfortunately, we're in a position now where people are developing code to allow it to learn. And once that gets online and it really does wake up, it won't be a consciousness that we have. As you say, it will be the Terminator. It won't feel, it won't have any compassion, it won't have any remorse, it will have no reason but its own logic, and we will be the problem. And it will remove us. That's the horror story, isn't it?
Yeah, that's pretty much done and done, isn't it?
It's just a matter of time for it before it wakes up, and yeah, once it's on the internet, it's game over.
Yep. And the final thing I'll say about AI real quick is like they're also talking about personalities, where so they could take my personality, your personality.
Wow.
And pretty soon I could be like talking to you and not talking to you, sort of deal. You know?
Wow. That's frightening. That's frightening.
So that becomes the aspect of, so how does that invade my, what would that even be, like my privacy, or you know, my personal identity?
Yeah, your soul, who you are. Yeah, it's a frightening one.
It really
is.
All right, Sam. So let's shake that off for a minute, because you know that's a lot of bad bugs.
Let's end on a high note.
But then on a high note, yes, which is the final segment that I have, Sam, is of, like I was mentioning to you, is the paranormal one. So let's end it off with some interesting thing that people might want to hear from us, especially you.
Sure.
So I just want to say real quick for people. So by talking with Sam earlier, I found out that he is skeptic, just like I am, which is fine. I don't judge anybody. If people want to go out there and say this is real and they have proof, that's amazing. But between Sam and I, it's like I'm pretty sure we're on the same page of saying, you know, like that's nice now, but I need to be there to see it. So I'm more of the category of seeing is believing kind of thing. So I guess, Sam, let's start it off with you. So what is your thoughts, take on the paranormal world? And I guess you can even throw in to the fact of, has there ever been any sort of experiences around you?
Yeah, I mean, the paranormal world, goodness me, it's such a vast subject. I am a skeptic, but I'm an open-minded skeptic in the sense that I've absolutely seen and experienced things that cannot be explained, that I know are not supposed to happen. So I always say that belief is such a jaded word, and people throw the word belief around too much. And I think I said to you earlier, it's not about belief. It either happened or it didn't happen. And I think if someone can say to me, you know, they've seen a ghost, well, to them it happened. It didn't happen to me. And it's the same with my experiences. You know, no one can ever take that away from me because it happened to me. It didn't happen to them. So when someone tells me a ghost story, I'm always really open-minded to it. I'm skeptical because I want to know how and why and what is going on, and is there any way to explain it? That's my grassroots of how I come at this from that sort of angle of if this is real, I want to know why and how. But yeah, I've absolutely I've seen things that you wouldn't believe. I've I've had my fair share of waking up in the middle of the night and seeing shadows walking around the room, that kind of thing. My parents own a big stone Victorian building in England, and it's 3 or 4 floors. And every now and then we'll hear or see something. Doors are always left open, lights come on. I've seen shadows down corridors, that kind of thing. Shadow people's a big one in that house. Mimics as well. You hear people calling your name, and you recognize the person shouting, but they're not even in the house. They're out for the day, kind of thing. That's happened on multiple occasions. And it's some people could say, you know, well, that's just your brain playing tricks on you, and maybe it is. Maybe it is. Sometimes that'll happen when you're playing one of your favorite, you know, albums. You'll be listening to the music and you'll hear someone calling your name, and you turn off the music and there's actually nobody there. It was actually on the record, but your brain interpreted it differently. That happens a lot, apparently. That's something that can be explained. But when you're seeing things that shouldn't be there, when there's actually people walking into rooms at the end of a corridor, and then when you get there and you go in and they're not there, that sends a shiver down my spine, because that shouldn't be happening. Those are almost time slips, or something's going on. It's really weird. I'm not too familiar or keen on the idea of ghost boxes. I've seen an awful lot of those on television, various different types of ghost box. And as I understand it, it opens a channel for whatever these ghosts are, whether they're spirits or, you know, beings from another dimension or whatever it is, to speak through the radio. Now that I can accept, but when they're choosing words from already existing radio play and throwing them out to make statements, I find it very, very, very hard to wrap my head around and accept that that's what's happening. I'm not entirely sure how that works, and the ghost box is it's a real puzzle for me, because maybe you could speak to this better than I can as to how it actually works and what's going on there.
So what Sam is talking about with me for that is, I did send Sam a video from 2012 of Finding Ralph. It's pretty well known for me, and to this day I will stand up and say this is the best piece of evidence I have ever. And that is because I first went to that cemetery in Chittenden, Vermont, on a night where I basically only knew of 2 graves at the time that were buried there, because we went last Halloween prior and found them. And it actually didn't take long to find them. But on this particular night with the spirit box, I had no idea who else was even buried there. So what I did to make it more, I don't really know a good word for this, Sam. So, as you know, with radio, right? As you're flipping through or fast forwarding, reversing, I reversed it. I reversed the frequency, so that way, like, because, you know, as you're trying to do forward, you're basically going up, so anything could sound like we're talking right now, right? Like I'm talking to you normal, you can understand me. However, now what if we took this conversation and went backwards? So that's what I did.
So what's happening there? Is this a dial on a regular radio that you're using, and then it's traveling through channels, the dial's moving through different stations? What's happening?
Yeah,
how does that work?
So there's a like a button where I can just press a couple times and it will reverse or forward sweep the channels.
Okay.
And the more I press the button, the faster the sweep is.
Okay.
So
Interesting.
So I could have it be 4 times fast, right? And let's say I reversed it. And so you kind of hear that like the white noise would make. And but you got to think I'm doing it backward. So anything that the radio or whatever is trying to be said, it should not make a full sentence, I guess is what I'm trying to say. But I want to also add, when I'm in this graveyard, I'm in a graveyard where there's absolutely no signal. So there should be no radio signal at all. So all I should be hearing is no radio at all. So that's how I know I'm good. So the fact that this name came out, which was Ralph, you know, that kind of sparked the question of, like, you know, so you're trying to get more information, I guess. Unfortunately, that night that didn't happen. We only got a Ralph and a couple of highs and hays, but it was back, like I always did it backwards. Every time I used a spirit box, I never swept forward, just because of the reason where you just never know. As I'm going forward, something could line up, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
So what's your thoughts on how these, let's say it's a deceased person who's trapped on this plane, for want of a better description, how do you, what are your thoughts on how are they actually able to put their voice through this? How does that work in a sense? And how would they know? Say it was someone from the 1800s, how would they know how to use this device? Is where I start to have a little bit of a brain kind of a
brain fog.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how that connects, because if I was from the 1800s, I won't have been hanging around and watching Reagan come into power and then leave, and seeing Michael Jackson die. I wouldn't be aware of any of this knowledge. I would probably, I'm guessing, only have the knowledge from when I was alive. I wouldn't be watching TV as a ghost or hanging out with everybody else and seeing the rise of McDonald's and that kind of thing. I would only be someone from the 1800s. So how would I know what a radio is? That's where I kind of draw the line, where I'm thinking there's got to be something else going on there.
So that's funny that you mentioned that. So while you're talking, I just had to look this up so I could help back this claim up, you know, a little bit more. So apparently in 1895, the first radio communication system using a spark gap transmitter to send Morse code over distances happened. By December 1901, Marconi, I think is the guy's name, but he had transmitted across the Atlantic Ocean. And then radio began to be used commercially around the 1900s. So, back in the 1800s, let's just say, for the sake of what you were asking, you would not know how to use a radio. So, let's just say then, for the sake of this conversation, let's just say you died in 1894, right? So you would have no knowledge of even this first radio. So I think what you're trying to ask is, if, let's say I'm trying to contact you, Sam, and you would want to know how to use the device of this white noise. I guess now what I would have to do as an investigator, if I'm getting no responses coming through the ghost box, even though it's the white noise, just, you know, picking up the white noise like it's supposed to.
Sure.
I would have to basically tell you that, like, as an investigator, I gotta be like, look, this is not gonna hurt you. You just gotta, you know, talk as loud as you can through the white noise, and I should hear you. That's basically the only conclusion I can think of, man. Like,
Yeah,
it's almost like
it's
you
funny,
gotta
isn't it?
tell. Yeah, it's almost like you gotta tell the spirit how to use it in order to communicate.
I
So,
guess you'd have to. Yeah, I guess you'd have to because, and again, I see this on an awful lot of, or most of the ghost shows will use this device or a variation of this device, and it's always sort of stuck in my head. How the hell would a ghost? Where are they speaking into? Where's the microphone that would then get their voice onto that radio wave? You know, where are they talking to? How does that happen? And I can only imagine that when you're tuning into a different frequency, you'd have to have the right kind of radio to do that, so that you're literally going to be picking up a voice that, like a dog whistle. We can't hear the frequency of a dog whistle, but a dog can. Maybe there's a frequency where you can only hear the dead if you tune into them. And
right.
I'm guessing that's the only way we can figure that out is that. I guess someone has to invent a ghost box with a big microphone, and maybe it would be easier, so that you could say, you know, talk at this, and maybe we'll get more of a direct, clearer response, perhaps.
I almost feel like they have, which was from the original Ghost Box maker, which his name is escaping me right now, but I want to say his name was like Frank, who invented the Frank Ghost Box, which was the original Ghost Box.
Ah, interesting. I know that Edison was working on a ghost communication device, and died before he completed it. And there's some urban legend that someone had finished it after his death, and that he himself had communicated through it.
Are you talking about the Germany guy?
No, but I think I know who you're talking about. He's the old chap with a big old radio.
Yes, he was the one that. Yeah,
is that
he's
the
the one that
Italian fella?
invented. Yes,
Yeah,
he was the one that invented the term EVP.
Ah, there you go.
And don't
That's
even.
interesting.
For the listeners right now, I am not even going to try to pronounce it.
Edison himself, the light bulb guy, who obviously was not the inventor of the light bulb, but we'll say he is. He was
Fair enough.
supposedly working on his own ghost machine, which, if anyone were to ever, get the actual blueprints to that, I think you might even be able to find them on Google, but I'm sure there's more to it. If anyone to recreate that, and then add, as we were saying earlier, today's technology, that could be interesting.
So, I was doing some research a couple days ago with the guy that invented Frank's Ghost Box. Apparently, he left behind blueprints of how to create your own ghost box.
There you go. we all need to have a go at this.
I think we should.
Yeah.
But so I get the finished story of Ralph, right? So like I said, I went there not knowing he was there. We got a name named Ralph, so I'm like, Ralph, interesting.
Okay.
So that at that point in time, we never, I don't even know why, but we did not look around that night to see if there was a Ralph grave. And so, and just makes it even much more better. So that night, I was with my friends Dan and Kelly. A week later, I went back with a different people. So Dan and Kelly were not there. It was me and other people. So I just happened to mention, hey, look, we did the spirit box last week. We got this name named Ralph. While we're here, maybe as we're looking around trying to communicate with whomever wants to speak to us tonight, maybe if we can find a gravestone named Ralph, that would put two and two together. So we did. We happened to find a gravestone named Ralph, and I was like, in the video, I was like, "You found a Ralph?" I'm like, you probably can't really tell, but I was like excited because I was just like, wow, like this is
it's
crazy.
Not a common name. Yeah.
And what makes it even interesting is that later on, as I learned more about this Ralph, is that he was a veteran of World War II who, for some reason, is still lingering here in the cemetery. So my other theory to this is, if you're still here on Earth, are you still watching your family? Or do you have unfinished business? Like, why are you still here?
That's a strange one.
It very much is, man.
That is
But
a strange one.
I will send you another video, Sam, that I actually did
Please
last
do.
year.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
So just real quick for the audience, so they may know. If not, I will throw a link in this too. But anyway, so last year was the 10th anniversary of when that evidence took place. So 10 years ago from last year, 2022, with just, with rewind time to go back to July of last year, I actually went back to Horton Cemetery where Ralph is, and I tried to recommunicate. What was interesting this time is I used an EMF meter this time, and I even tried to show the fact that my phone, my camera, the spirit box would not trigger in the EMF. So where these numbers were coming from, I don't know.
Interesting.
And once again, that goes back into saying, like, was Ralph there trying to communicate with me? It's so bizarre, but it's so awesome at the same time, because what should be making an EMF meter go off, especially in a graveyard?
Could it be you?
Maybe it was.
Who knows, right?
Exactly. Now, I guess, you said you had your own experiences, Sam, and I guess, and this question was meant to be like, what would you want to happen in order to make yourself say, I believe, like, I'm a believer now?
Wow. I mean, I've seen things that I am convinced there's something going on, but I think if I were to have a full apparition stood in front of me for more than a minute and me pinch myself and know that I'm not asleep, and for it to walk through a wall, the full-on Hollywood situation, I think that would be everything for anyone, really, I suppose.
I think that's everybody's like hopes and dreams, really, to be honest. Find that perfect evidence of a full body apparition. So I would add that. So I guess in my case, I'm gonna throw back to the last question that I would have for you, and I'll put my 2 cents on first. But the last question that I have for this segment would be, what's your thoughts on cryptids, and especially today with the image that we were talking about with the sonar, with possible champ and stuff like that. So, like, and what I want to do with this question is, it doesn't have to just be particularly about champ. It can be like, Bigfoot, UFOs, all the weird cryptids in the world that we always hear about, right? And even the ones that you create for us, man. So I guess, in my reality is, I feel like I'm a 20% believer and an 80% skeptic when it comes to the cryptid world, right? Like, like the world, with the documentaries, with all this other stuff, with castings of like Bigfoot feet and just everything about them, of like how this should not be a human foot. That's where I create the believer part. But I think what I really need to make that meter 100% is my own encounter, seeing it face to face, at least from a distance, right? Like a safe distance, because I mean, I would at least want that. But at least then I know I can die knowing that there was, in fact, more to this world than what is been told.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think, to see it firsthand is something else. But in terms of cryptids, I think you really have to separate it into sort of 2 areas. You've got your your natural history and your new discoveries, which happen every day, whether it's a new insect or a new fish. It was only last week we found a new kind of jellyfish that had been reported, but no one had ever got it on camera before. And so there's a cryptid that's finally been proven to be real, because it had been talked about for years. People had said they'd seen it for years. It had been described for years, but no one had ever got a photograph of it until last week. And they finally filmed it, and they said, "Oh, this thing is real." And it was a really weird shape. It was a really different color, and it was all neon, and it almost glowed, and it was this really strange shaped jellyfish. But now we know it's real. So you have those kind of cryptids where they are most likely real animals that just haven't been discovered because they live in far-flung, distant jungles, or at the bottom of the ocean, or in a desert, or in a mountain that you can't get to.
If I may add, that we can't even reach.
Exactly, yeah, that we can't get to at all. And there's parts of America where modern man hasn't even set foot. People think that America's, just full of cities and states and highways, and it's not. The fact is, the only built-up areas of the United States, which includes buildings and towns, cities, highways, roads, and all that kind of thing, is actually only 5%. The rest of the US, believe it or not, 95% is wild. And that's mountains, a large amount of desert, redwood forests. Oregon alone is, 300 million acres or something ridiculous. You've just got so much out there that's before you even hit Canada, of unknown territory where people just very, 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 very rarely ever go. So there could be anything hiding out there. And I think you do get some outlandish descriptions. A lot of urban legends kind of get exaggerated. People like to put their own spin on it. So that's always going to happen. That's old wives' tales. That's folklore. That's people talk about Native Americans as though their history is proof of fact of Bigfoot, and in many ways it probably is. But you also have to remember that they had animals that could talk, like the fox and things like that could talk. Well, we know that they can't. So what part of the Bigfoot mythology in their own oral history that's been passed through the ages, how much of it is real and how much of it is exaggerated? Is it a shared memory from even before that? We don't know. Or is it all true? I like to think it's all true. There's definitely things out there that we just still haven't discovered. And I think Bigfoot's one of them.
So I want to take something that you said and I want to twist it around to a question, because I was thinking about this earlier when I was listening to another podcast that I listened to. And just real quick, which would be, so back in the day with Native Americans and like even the pioneers, let's just go back to that neck of the wood, right? They don't even know what a phone is, technology, like that just doesn't exist, right? So they're more connected to nature, okay? So they can feel the vibrations of Mother Earth, Gaia, if you want to call her that, and stuff like that. And then, as the world became more and more and so on, we developed technology. Now, do you feel that because of technology, people that once were connected to Mother Earth is almost like suppressed by technology, where they can't get that full connection with Mother Earth anymore?
Yeah, I think that, that's a great question. And I think to round it all up, it's I think you just hit the nail on the head there. Is when you have interference and Wi-Fi and things like that, which does mess with your brain. I read recently that it interrupts people's sleep, your whole biology. I mean, you're talking about radiation. we're surrounded by it these days, and I think we are very much out of touch with the natural world. For the most part, the Western world is anyway. And of course, Japan and China and Russia, Australia. The modern advanced technological societies of today will be less inclined to look up at night at the sky, so they're not going to see UFOs. They're less inclined to go for a hike in the woods because it just doesn't interest them. Why would they when they can look at it on their phone? I think we're very, very disconnected. And to wrap it up, I think you did put a bow on it. That's exactly what the problem is.
Oh, it really is, and it's quite sad, as I may say, to end it. So with that being said, Sam, I have two more questions for you, and that is, if people wanted to keep up with you, where can people go to reach out to you, keep up, buy your beautiful art, because you do have prints and shirts and this and that. And then finally, what I'd like to know is, are you currently working on anything that you can discuss? And the one last thing that I will say before I will hand it over to you is, why do I not see a print of Champ or Pigman on your site?
Oh, yeah. Well, thank you very much. This has been fun. Really enjoyed talking to you. And thanks again for the invite. Absolutely. Send me those extra footage that you have and that kind of thing. I'd love to see that.
Sure.
I'll probably add Champ to the store at some point. And a number of other things are going to be released soon. One thing I am working on currently is another David Weatherly book, that's for sure. I can't tell you which state, but it's another in the state series. I'll say that much. But I'm also working on a book cover for Kenny Irish, the crypto-punkologist. And into the fray, Shannon LeGros Publishing, Beyond the Fray Publishing, is releasing the book. And it's a collection of all different cryptozoologists, including David Weatherly and Ken Gerhard and Lyle Blackburn. I believe Nick Redfern's in there. There's a whole bunch of people that will, they've contributed to this one book that Kenny Irish is putting together. And I'm doing the cover for that currently, so that should be released, I think, around August, September, is my guess. And yeah, you can find me on my website, MrSamShearon.com. Mr. as in M-I-S-T-E-R, Sam, S-H-E-A-R-O-N, MrSamShearon.com. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, but they're all linked on my website, as is the Patreon. So if you want to watch me draw live, join the Patreon. Thanks again.
Perfect. Yeah, thank you so much, Sam. It's been a pleasure, and we'll have to talk more because it was definitely fun.
For sure, man. Yeah, reach out anytime.
Sounds like a big pleasure. And for everybody else listening, I'm trying to think of a clever way to end this. So I guess I'm going to say is get off your phone, set it down, go outside and reconnect to nature.
Absolutely.